And crib with a dream, don't die, skylight kissing the sky. With 25 calling out time, freshness, they gon' shine. Silver splashing bombs, out of orbit they fly. Lindell steady cooking, kingpin, shortstop guy. Orange and blue, rubber true, yeah we here fight. Mets taking crowns when the city feel lights. Queens in the house, loud and clear, no fear. 2025's the year, let's make it crystal clear. Let's make it crystal clear. Alonzo crushing moons, bats igniting the spark. Polar bear in the zone, send it deep to the park. The anthem's rolling through, got a swagger so clean. Queen's army on the rise, building championship dream. Orange and blue, rubber true, yeah we here fight. Mets taking crowns on the city feel lights. Queens in the house, loud and clear, no fear. 2025's the year, let's make it crystal clear. Let's make it crystal clear. From Flushing to the boroughs, the city unites. Soto bombs in skies, fireworks in the night. Lindell's the leader, on the field he commands. At peak bringing power, got the league in his hands.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to the 2025 season and the Mets season preview for the 2025 season. Finally, the week has come. We're a few days away from opening day at Dyken Park in Houston. Very excited. Finally. And that means we give our predictions about the lineups for opening day and at least predictions and Mets win totals for the 2025 season. And of course, we'll go through the roster that hasn't officially been put together as of yet. Maybe one or two spots that might be a little different, but we'll go over that as well. But before we get started, let's say what up to the man next to me. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Best time of the year, Rob. Spring training is officially over. We got a couple of days break, but Thursday, the journey starts, and it's going to be a true journey here in 2025. I cannot wait. Games start to matter. Win-loss records matter. The results matter because you've been hearing me say process over results. Well, that's out the window. Results matter. And I can't wait to break it all down here today. And we're talking about the Mets. We're talking about the division. We heard some comments from Juan Soto as well following the Yankees versus Mets game this afternoon, talking about what the expectations are. And clearly, the expectations for the New York Mets this season are sky high, which is a little bit different than when we were talking about this team just a year ago during our season preview going into 2024. So I can't wait.
Yeah, how quickly a year has changed. As you know, we were doing our season preview last year, and it was no expectation. It was transition year, so to speak. And we give our predictions last year, and we were kind of close. And I made sure I did my win totals and everything, all my predictions prior to you sending them. And we're more different than I thought, and that's interesting. But we'll get into that a little later. But look, this is an expected playoff team. There's high expectations. You don't spend $800 million on Juan Soto and don't have high expectations. And there's no excuses anymore for any player on this roster. From the 26th man to the 40th man on the roster, it doesn't matter. You got to win. And you will get killed. You will get destroyed by Mets fans if you do not. But it starts with game one on Thursday. And to get started, we're going to talk about the roster. We're going to go from the bullpen, the catchers, the infielders, outfielders, starters, and bullpen rather quickly, and then we're going to get into our predictions. So, Chris, any final words before we get started?
No, this should be interesting, especially, I mean, with all the injuries that the Mets have sustained in spring training, it should be interesting. But we still don't have, just to caveat this, we still don't have the official final look, but this is more or less what we can assume. Clearly, things are subject to change. A bullpen name here and there. I know, Daniel Nunez is not going to be making the open day roster, as we heard a couple days ago, but this, for the most part, should be the most accurate look. But I'm ready. Let's get into it.
Yeah, here we go. So, obviously, first, the catching position is already different from what we did. Obviously, the Francisco Alvarez injury in spring training. Luis Torrens just gets bumped up, is our starting catcher, and Hayden Sanger, the Whole Foods stocker, is now a backup catcher for the New York Mets, and that's great for him. He had a really good spring. Chris, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Listen, Luis Torrens, offensively, he showed me a lot this spring training, and the power clearly is not going to be, the ceiling of the power is not going to be as high as Francisco Alvarez. Luis Torrens is your prototypical, seventh type hitter, getting on base. He'll get you an occasional double. Not to say he doesn't have power, but again, you're not going to get, you're not going to maximize the home run ball as much as you would with Francisco Alvarez. But defense, there's no drop off there. And so I like Luis Torrens. He should do just a fine job to fill in for Francisco Alvarez. There's going to be some work that Alvarez needs to do in terms of the type of injury that he had, in terms of the rehab. It could be a little bit more of a recovery than just that 6 to 8 week time frame. But I think Luis Torrens is up to the task, and he showed it in spring training. And I agree. I mean, it was a toss up in terms of the backup catcher role and position, but it really seems like the Mets are prioritizing defense here. And Hayden Sanker has a rocket of an arm. I think he threw out 2 runners today in the game today, and he's got 4 or 5 throwouts at second base on runners trying to steal on him, and it's rejuvenating to see. So on the off days for Luis Torrens, you can fully expect the battery duo of Sanger and whoever is out there pitching. Nobody's going to miss a beat there. It's just about what type of offense he's going to provide you. And with what we saw in spring training, it's more than likely not going to be much. But at this point, it really seems like the Mets are going defensive over offensive for the backup role.
Yeah, and look, when your quote unquote offensive catcher gets hurt, you have to prioritize defense in your backup, who is now your starter, and now the backup to the backup. You just got to prioritize defense. It just makes sense to do so. You were expecting more offense from the catching position. That Alvarez didn't give you much last year, hoping for more. But again, you don't know when he's really going to come back. And I prioritize defense as a catcher. And anything you get offensively is just a bonus, in my opinion. So that is our catchers at the moment for opening day, and we'll see if that changes depending on how Sanger does. I don't know if Reitz has any, say in if he does well in spring, in the minors, and Sanger doesn't do well. Will they switch it up? I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. So next up, we're going to do the infielders, and we know the infielders are mostly what this is supposed to be. Obviously, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos, Brett Baty, and Luisano Acuna. Yes, I hit his name a little bit. That was a mistake, but that's okay. The infield this can be, a very good defense. You think Vientos would get better. We know Lindor is a Gold Glove shortstop, even though baseball doesn't want to give him a Gold Glove. He is a Gold Glove shortstop. Pete Alonso is, solid at first base. Luisano Acuna obviously would be the better infielder if he gets the job at second base, but it looks like Brett Baty is going to get it, as he hit another home run today. But the good news is, what we wanted was to see both of these guys, not in the way that they're putting these guys on the roster for, but they're both going to be on this roster. And did you hear the rumor or the report that the Mets have been looking for an infield right-handed bat before they make a decision of Luisano Acuna being on the opening day roster? That is nuts to me, to be quite honest.
So they're basically saying they should have just re-signed Jose Iglesias at this point. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. If that's truly the case, and if they go ahead and give, I'm not sure if he got cut or not yet. Donovan Walton, I'm not sure if he's still in the consideration. I haven't been really keeping up with that. But if they choose to leave off Luisangel Acuna in favor of someone like that, because there's nobody else out there that's formidable that fits that bill, a right-handed guy that's a respectable bat that can play above average defense. I mean, to a T, in a nutshell, that was Jose Iglesias. So if that was their plan, I don't know. I mean, Luisangel Acuna had to have done something wrong in their eyes, with whatever it is. I don't know, because I think he's finished his spring on a high note, to be honest with you. He was getting on base on a more regular basis. I think he had not a great spring training by any means, because he got off to such a slow start, and Brett Baty kind of just took off from the start. But at this point, if Luisangel Acuna is not on the roster and they're looking for that veteran right-handed infield option, it's such a bad look. It's such a bad look, because Jose Iglesias, I said Jose Reyes because I was thinking about Luisangel Acuna. I've made those comparisons so many times between their defensive skills and how they look with the mechanics. But Jose Iglesias going out to the West, and he's making their open day roster, by the way. So
Yep.
congrats to Jose Iglesias. You should have just signed him at that point. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. This is something that I just don't quite comprehend, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, and well, because what have I been saying the entire time? And Lindor basically confirmed it in one of the reports that he was quoted in, saying that he gets bored. He gets not necessarily lazy, but gets bored in non-competitive high competition games. And that's basically the minors. That's basically spring training. And Lindor brought that up. And the leader that Lindor is, I'm glad he brought that up, to the public. Because I've said this for a while. I think there's something going on behind the scenes with Luisano Acuna that the Mets do not like. Because there's no reason why Luisano Acuna shouldn't have gotten the nod early in spring training to be the second base, or at least get a bench spot over Jeff McNeil. Then when Jeff McNeil got hurt, it should have been Luisano Acuna's job. And I said that for a while. The only reason why I said Brett Beatty deserves it is because what he's done in spring. And that doesn't mean he's going to be a good second baseman and a good offensive player. It's just that he does deserve it. And when the Mets have prioritized, hey, spring training numbers, Clay Holmes, you're great. You proved it. You get opening day, but you don't do it for the guy that you say there's going to be a competition for with Acuna and Beatty, and then don't give it to Beatty. It's kind of like, all right, what are we doing here? So I agree. When I also saw that report that the Mets are looking for a right-handed infielder or bat infielder, and I'm like, there's something going on with Luisano Acuna and the Mets organization. I don't know if it's it's a terrible thing or it's just something he's not showing them that they don't like. And I think it's the energy. I think it's the energy that he brought when he came up last year and he brought to this team. I think they want to see that from him because you do have to show something to your organization, right? 14 games. It was really nice of what he did for those 14 games. But again, they don't care about last year anymore. They do not care. They showed you that with Pete Alonso. They showed you that with Luisano Acuna. They showed you with Brett Beatty not doing anything for 2 years. They showed you. And they're doing it here again. And there's something going on with Luisano Acuna and the organization. They don't like something that's going on. I don't know if his mentality, his personality right now, or the way he's, just the aura that he's bringing. I don't know what it is, but it is something. I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad Lindor confirmed it, and it just confirms it more that why would the Mets need a backup infielder, right-handed bat, when you got a young stud prospect that you could just put on the roster? And I don't like the platoon. I think somebody should just get the job, and the other one should go to the minors so both can get at bats. But if you're going to put them both on the roster, and now Acuna still isn't officially on the 26-man roster yet, tells me there's something going on, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of Lindor's comments, to be honest with you. I think that I'm not going to say that people are taking it out of context. I don't think that people are also taking it in the right context, to be honest, with you either. Maybe it was a subliminal message from Lindor to Acuna. I don't know, but I mean, he did say at the end of the day, when the lights come on and it matters, I mean, he's going to show up and he's going to play hard, right? So we can get bogged down by the AAA numbers. We can go ahead and take a look at the spring training numbers, and then we can also assess whether he actually, has earned it or deserves it or not. But at the end of the day, I'm evaluating talent, right? As a Mets fan, I'm like, who has the talent and who can make a contribution when games matter? And I think that's still going to be Luis Angel Acuna, no matter how you cut it. And I mean, I honestly don't think Lindor is trying to throw shade at him at all, right? I don't whatsoever.
I think he's trying to wake him up.
Maybe, or and maybe he's just honestly trying to give an honest answer. I mean, let's be honest, Lindor wasn't, in anywhere near those AAA facilities in those games, right? I highly doubt he was watching on a daily basis what Acuna was doing.
Like when you're one of the big guys on the team, like you hear rumbles of what's going on in
I'm sure.
Players for sure.
Well, I'm sure too. And I don't know. And I heard something about Luis Angel Acuna, asking for a day off because he was just getting he thought he was getting a little bit overworked last year later on before he got the call up. I don't really know, to be honest, because I haven't really dug deep into that. So for me right now, it's just kind of hearsay. But at this point, I still have to go with what I just stated. I mean, I like the look of this infield. I do 100% agree with you. that Brett Baty deserves if they were to give more chances based off of spring training alone. Then obviously Brett Baty would deserve more chances. But I'm not going to sit here and also act like, because of what Acuna did in spring training, or because of what Lindor is saying, etc., because I'm not taking out of context. But even if I did, that's not going to hinder me from thinking of, Acuna as a guy that's ready
Yeah,
to contribute on an everyday basis starting in 2025 in just about, 2 to 3 days' time. I think he can do it. I really think he can do it. And I think that at this point, it would be an absolute mistake to go look for another bat when that
yeah,
spot for the time being until McNeil gets back at the very minimum should be Luis Angel Acuna's
yep,
spot. Um, that's just my personal opinion. He can be the utility player. I still think he's going to be playing opening day if you're playing the matchups, which it looks like the Mets are going to be doing from what we've seen, from what, Anthony DeComo has stated on his X account. It's still TBD, nothing's set in stone.
yep,
But I would really hate to look back and say, well, if you're going to do this and you're going to take this chance away from this 22-year-old kid when you have a lot of other infielders coming up through, the pipeline as well that you're going to need answers on. This is your time to get answers on Luis Angel
yep,
Acuna in game action. Because once McNeil gets back, if Brett Baty does the job and he sticks as a bench player when McNeil's back, because we both think that McNeil's going to come back and get the starting job,
yeah,
regardless if he deserves it or not, then Acuna is not going to be playing for, we're not going to see him back in Queens for a very long time. So this is your chance to at least understand, hey, is he the type of player that his AAA numbers and his spring training numbers are showing? Or does he have something more to him that we don't see at those levels, but we see at the major league level and we saw in those 14 games last season? I'm not saying that he has to get the bulk reps. It can be a platoon basis. It could be a spot start every, 3 or 4 days. I know that's not the most efficient way to get the production out of Luis Angel Acuna. We want him getting everyday at bats, but he's probably going to be going back down to the minor leagues when Jeff McNeil gets back anyways. So why not just give him this chance? That's
yeah.
just my 2 cents on it.
100% agree. I just don't understand what you don't want this platoon to do, even if they do matchups and they don't do hot hands, whatever they do. And they find a way to get these guys enough playing time between each other, but they're still losing at bats, right? We obviously know that they're going to lose at bats just based on guys getting days off, switching matchups and all that other stuff. But if you look at the pitching that I was looking at it today, that the pitching for the first about, I would say, 10 games or so, the Mets don't face any lefties that are currently on rosters right now for starters in the teams that we face. There's one lefty, and that is Framber Valdez. So if they're going by matchups, Brett Baty should play a lot. But I still don't believe they're gonna do that. I think they're gonna try to get Luis Acuna in and Baty as much playing time as possible, because again, you're not going to benefit Luis Acuna by sitting him for multiple games in a row based on matchups. That's why I don't like it. That's why I'd rather just have Brett Baty, who clearly deserves the job, and put Luis Acuna in the minors and give him the at bats.
So who takes Acuna's roster spot
I
in
have no
that
idea. I
sense?
don't even know. I don't know.
That's why it doesn't make sense.
Like, I just don't like the fact that it can hurt Luis Acuna with his progress. And he could get better with more at bats. I'm not saying that, he's going to end up being, the worst prospect ever if he doesn't get a couple of more at bats. But look, I want Acuna on the roster. I think it makes more sense. It's stupid to get a veteran right-handed bat infielder that is going to do what? Is probably going to be worse than Luis Acuna. I mean, maybe he would be good. I don't know. But I mean, that veteran guy that you bring in here is gone after McNeil comes back anyway. So why not just give Acuna the opportunity?
And also that time, since we're talking about, we're talking about Lindor's comments, why not give him that time to just, even if he's on the bench, just learn from Francisco Lindor
Agreed.
and get all the pointers
100%.
that he can? Because honestly, at this point, if you're telling me that he could be playing board in AAA, then why would you send him back down there? Let him learn from Francisco Lindor and being in the clubhouse for the first month or whenever McNeil gets back, and then he can go back down. He'll still get his AAA at bats. I just don't understand that. I don't understand that. So I think that it would be valuable for him to also just be on the roster. And if that's a viable concern, because I'm not saying that it is, we don't have any truth or any validity to it, whether he's bored or not in spring training in AAA, and he turns on the Jets, when games matter. But if that's the case, then he should be sitting next to Francisco Lindor for the first of the season, regardless if he's playing or not, and just learning from him and just talking to him and going through infield drills with him and just do that, because that would be more beneficial than him playing board in AAA to begin the season anyways. So that's my point, and that's what I'll leave it at.
Yeah, and it is very telling that they haven't officially named him on the roster, which is so crazy to me. Like this whole, I mean, they said it a week ago that he was going to be on the roster, but again, we'll see. I'm putting him on the roster. I think we're both putting him on the roster. It makes more sense again to backup infielder, right-handed bat, other than and then to not put Acuna on it. It's kind of weird, but we will see, and we'll deal with it if he is not on the roster. All right, let's go to the outfielders right now, and we clearly know the outfielders. Obviously, Juan Soto. I don't know if guys know, but we signed him. That was pretty cool. We got obviously Brandon Nimmo, Jose Siri, Tyron Taylor, Starlin Marte, and Jesse Winker. I saw KTU saying that center field is going to be a problem. I don't see why it's going to be a problem at all. And I think he's talking more about offensive numbers. And again, if you're going to be concerning yourself about center field offensive numbers, that means Juan Soto, Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, Vientos, 4 or 5 guys in your top 5 of your lineup are not doing the job. Then you're going to worry yourself about Jose Siri's at-bats and Tyron Taylor's at-bats and their offensive production. They're role players in this lineup. That's what they are. What you get from the bottom of the order is always gravy, just like any other team. Find me a 7 through 9 that is great. Not many. The reason why Jose Siri is here, and I don't know if he's going to get a lot of playing time, but I guarantee, because Tyron Taylor is also a right-handed bat, I'm thinking they're going to go with hot hands, but I think they're going to worry more about the defense in center field. And again, you could choose Tyron Taylor or Jose Siri. They're both really good. I think Siri's better, but not by a lot. Jose Siri is going to start, I believe, because of the fact that he has this dynamic defensive ability that he can patrol the gaps, especially if Nimmo's playing left field and Juan Soto's playing right field. You need somebody in center field that can go gap the gap with no struggles at all. And Siri and Tyron Taylor can do that. Now, I don't care who plays, to be quite honest with you. Doesn't matter to me. Offensively, again, we had Harrison Bader last year. It wasn't something pretty, but he meant a lot to us defensively in center field until he couldn't hit no more. And Tyron Taylor started to hit, and then they needed the offense because the top of the lineup sucked. So the top of the lineup is going to dictate what we're going to be talking about with the bottom of the order. If the top of the order is doing their job, all we're going to care about is Jose Siri and Tyron Taylor and their defensive capabilities. That's all we're going to talk about. Chris, I don't know if you agree or not, but that's the way I feel when it comes to this situation.
Yeah, listen, I'm not worried about it. And I think that the Mets could treat this like a Bader Taylor situation 2.0, where, Siri can get bulk at bats in the first couple of months of the season if he does taper off like, Harrison Bader did last season. But Harrison Bader never had the home run power, right? And, even defense, I think Siri is honestly the better defender of the two anyways. It's pretty neck and neck, but I would give it to Siri based off of what I've seen. But, the good thing about this is that I like Tyrone Taylor a lot because I think he is the ultimate professional. We saw that he was ready on any given day last season, and I have no doubt in my mind that he is going to be just as ready, this season to fill in. Like when we talk about platoons and we talk about, playing the hot hand, yeah, absolutely, that is definitely the case. But I think, if there's one guy in this roster that can handle the platoon and can handle sitting a game after going like 3 for 4 and then coming back 2 days later and giving you good production defensively and offensively, I think it's going to be Tyrone Taylor. And I think that the platoon here makes sense because, Tyrone Taylor fit into the roster last year as an everyday center fielder when he really wasn't supposed to be in that situation, right? Yeah. He wasn't. And he did a pretty decent job based off of being a fourth outfielder that filled in as a starter. So I think that if Jose Siri, I think the key to him continuing, and having great season, having great production, we're not worried about the defense, is the offense. He needs to just lay off some of these pitches, right? He needs to increase the walk rate. I mean, what he hit $180 last season, something like that, with over 20 home runs. I mean, if he gets up to like 210, mixes in a couple of walks in between, gets the walk rate up, is able to steal a couple of bags and produce to the lineup, that way, I'll take it. I mean, the bar is really low for me offensively with the production that I'm expecting for Jose Siri. I think that has been very well known with his career so far. But there's a reason at the end of the day that David Stearns went out there and chose to go ahead and trade for him. I mean, minus outside of the years of control that he has left, he's an electric player. And I think that the bottom half of the order, and you've said it countless of times on all of our streams, we're not really worried about the bottom half of the order, because if everything is going right at the top half of the order, then we shouldn't worry about what's going down, going on in the bottom half. And we're still going to get production from guys like Winker, even Marte, right? In the bottom half. Terrence, we just talked about how he had an impressive, spring training. So I think the pros with his defense outweigh the cons with the offense. But again, you're still talking about a candidate to hit 20 plus home runs. I understand Mets fans' concerns, with him based off of what everyone saw with the strikeout rate, with the chase rate, because all of that comes with the home runs that Jose Siri is going to give you. But I think that there's more. I think that there's bigger issues with this roster that we should worry about than center field. I think that would be on the lower list of problems that I would like to talk about with this team, because I think that Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri, I mean, how many premier everyday starters in center field do you have really around this league? They're a hot commodity. And I think that this platoon, just like last year, will get the job done. I mean, last year we're talking about Harrison Bader, winning a couple of ball games with clutch hits in the first couple of months of the season. I wouldn't put it past Jose Siri to do the same thing. Of course, the production, if that happens, will drop off, but I think that there are bigger issues to worry about, Rob, than complaining about Jose Siri. That's just my take.
There's no need to complain about Jose Siri. Again, David Stearns traded for him because of his defense. And by the way, guys, I don't know if everybody notices, but people care about home runs. They don't care about average, right? I'm not an advocate of that. I've never been that, and I've been on record stating that. I care about average, but the Mets don't care much about average. Baseball doesn't care much about average. They care about, can you hit home runs? And realistically, at the bottom of the order, when probably less people are on base, most times, again, baseball is a crazy sport. You never know. He'll probably find spots where he has runners on. But when you're at the bottom of the order, your job is to either get a run by hitting a home run or find a way to get on base. And I know Siri doesn't do the other part of the offensive side. Average and walk rate is very, very low. But they like the possibility of him hitting between 17 and 20 home runs, right? That is something that the Mets do not have. They didn't have that last year. Even with Tyrone Taylor, he wasn't a home run guy. Harrison Bader, what did he hit? 12 home runs? You're projected to get 5 to 8 more home runs. 5 to 7 more home runs from the bottom of that order in center field than you got last year. Harrison Bader lost his job because when the top of the order started to hit, Bader started not to hit. And that's when Tyrone Taylor took over, because Tyrone Taylor started to hit a little bit. He wasn't great, but he was clutch. And that's the thing. Again, let's see what Jose Siri does. We don't know how he's going to be in a different role. He was playing in Tampa Bay, for crying out loud, with like 10 people in the ballpark most of the time, with a team that probably didn't care much about anything. Now he's in a different environment. He has a ton of fans. He has a ton of people around him that like him. You see how Soto gravitated towards him right away, along with other outfielders as well gravitated towards Siri. I think that's going to help him a little bit. Not a lot. I'm not saying he's going to bat 230 here, but he's going to provide power. And the Mets are looking basically with that and the defense. And I think that's what we have to look at. At least that's the way I see it. I mean, we will see. And again, and Explosive just said it in the chat. Let me just put up his comment really quick. Siri prevents runs, which will help us. That is a big deal. 2 years ago, or last year when Stearns took over the job, He says run prevention is key. He loves guys that has run that can provide run prevention. And that was something that he talked about last year. And his philosophy isn't changing. So defensively, he's going to probably save more runs defensively. That is probably going to be more important than his offensive stats, to be quite honest with you. And again, we'll see. And if he doesn't do the job, guess what, guys? You got Tyrone Taylor. He'll play center field. And you might even see Drew Gilbert, if he plays well in the minors, up not too long after that. It may be late May, early June. So we'll see. It is what it is, Chris. It is what it is.
I mean, honestly, if things go south with Jose Siri and he's just absolutely unplayable, I'm sure they'll shop him with, at the deadline. Because he still is. I mean, teams will take a chance on him just like the Mets have. And if he has another year of control left or however many years it is, because again, the contract is advantageous, which is one of the reasons that we liked the trade when it went down, as we pointed out, when we were both live talking about it when it first happened, he's a flippable candidate if things don't go well. But at that point, then you have to talk about, who's going to be filling in as essentially your backup center fielder, because it's, Nimmo is not an option at this point of his career. With what we've heard injury wise in spring training, it'll be Tyrone Taylor as your starter, but you have to get somebody in return at the deadline, or just, I don't know, maybe Jet Williams is ready. I mean, when is he going to be ready, for crying out loud? I don't know what's going to happen, but you have to have a backup option as well if you're going to do that. I think he's going to stick around for the full season. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. And I think that, honestly and non-biasedly, I think fans that do not or are not on the Jose Siri bandwagon right now will be thoroughly impressed. I'm not telling you he's going to turn around and hit 240 with 30 bombs. Don't expect that. But I think that he'll produce, better numbers at the very minimum in terms of what fans want to see, which, again, batting average is batting average. But if you're a person who really wants to see a better batting average than not, then I think you'll get that, because it's very hard to hit lower than what he did last season while producing 20 plus home runs. So we'll see.
Yeah, and guess what? He got more protection, guys. I know Met fans love to talk about protection. He got better protection than he probably ever had in the Rays lineup. So, if your first complaint about the New York Mets is Jose Siri, let's talk about the starters, because we got a lot. I got a lot to complain about here, and we're gonna talk about the starters here. So I get the luxury of going to Houston with many other Met fans and thinking I was going to get David Peterson and Kodai Senga with game 2 and 3. I'm getting Tyler fucking McGill in game 2 and Griffin Cannon. I can't complain about that. But still, over David Peterson and Kodai Senga. That's what I'm getting in game 2 and 3. So Clay Holmes, you better be lights out, because I might run on the field and just go bonkers, because I'm very upset about this. Really, really am. Tyler McGill does not deserve to be in this goddamn rotation. Max Kranick, at the very least, should be in this rotation. They started him most of the games in spring training. He pitched once in a while. He came in for one inning and a half, but he mostly started. This is why I get upset about when the Mets say Clay Holmes deserves to be the opening day starter because of his stats that he proved in spring training as a starter. That's what Mendoza said. He deserves it. He proved it in spring training. So they went by spring training numbers for Clay Holmes, but they didn't go by Max Kranick numbers and Tyler McGill's numbers, who was basically fighting for that spot. Why Tyler McGill got the starting gig in this rotation, I don't even have an argument for it, except that I can't even say. Griffin Cannon, we kind of had an idea that he was going to be in this rotation because you gave him $4.5 million. We both agreed that was probably going to happen. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I mean, if you're going off spring training numbers, like you said, and we were talking about it with Acuna and Beatty, so if you're going and doing the same thing for the rotation, which you're clearly not, I agree with you. McGill is not, he shouldn't belong anywhere near this rotation. I mean, Griffin Canning earned it. I mean, he had an electric spring training, to be honest with you, in terms of the production. So I'm more excited for Griffin Canning's start than I am Tyler McGill's, and that's saying something, because Tyler McGill does it again. I don't know what he has in this organization. I don't know what's going on, but he does it again. and he just keeps on benefiting from these injuries because this guy should be on a fully healthy Mets team. He should be in AAA. There's no reason that he is on a major league mound to start this season for the New York Mets. But alas, here we are. Listen, I mean, I agree with this comment too in terms of the bullpen's going to need to carry a lot of weight in terms of the Tyler McGill starts, because it's like every single time, he even gets off to a hot start in one of his outings. It's like the fourth inning or so. That's when the implosion starts, right? That's when the walks start.
Yep.
Maybe he gets out of the jam, maybe he doesn't, but like he's just not an efficient pitcher. I don't have any complaints elsewhere. I'm just kind of wondering why they aligned the rotation like this. Do you have any idea of why they did it? Because I don't have the reason for why they did it.
The only thing I can think of, they like the stuff of Max Kranick in the bullpen. They think his stuff probably translate better in the bullpen. And I think you brought that up, Chris, not too long ago about Kranick's stuff, that it translates better in the bullpen. Maybe that's their thought process. I don't know. I really don't know. But again, their whole method and their process with Kranick was starting him for 3, 4, 5 innings in spring training, and most of his outings were that length. So like I just don't understand. Like, was it a competition or was it there just to stretch him out just in case somebody got hurt and Kranick would get thrown into the rotation? Like, that's the only thing I can think of, because this is why I get upset with David Stearns and the Mets organization with silly things like this. You can't tell me that one guy can prove it in spring training and get the job and get the nod for opening day and be one of the top starters in this rotation. And then on the other end, the same thing in the rotation. One guy is better than the other, but the other guy gets it who doesn't perform better than the other guy. It just doesn't make sense. And then on top of that, you got David Peterson and Kodai Senga that's not going to start until the Marlins series. Like, maybe Griffin Cannon, I would say, okay, you get a game in Houston, maybe, right? Maybe this is a matchup, but they're all righties. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know. But to have Kodai Senga, I don't know if I understand, but this is what already annoys me about the Kodai Senga situation. They're still trying to baby him into a rotation that, guess what, guys? This is a 5-man rotation yet again. As I said, their 6-man rotation nonsense is a gimmick. Baseball 6-man rotations are a gimmick. It doesn't work. If it worked, more teams would do it. And injuries aside, they still weren't going to go to a 6-man rotation. I still don't believe they were. And you would probably see McGill in the minors or Kranick in the minors and one of those guys in the bullpen. Just like, because Paul Blackburn could be the 6th starter. Why didn't they make him the 6th starter? Then you would have, 2 more bullpen spots available. But guess what? They go into a 5-man rotation. This is why Kodai Senga annoys me so much, because everything needs to go right for Kodai Senga to pitch. And that worries me. And why David Peterson isn't starting the first 3 games of the season is also annoying to me. It's not the end of the world. I understand that. But again, April 4th, opening day at Citi Field. All you Met fans can't wait. I'm probably going to go to New York, probably to go to opening day. You're going to see Tyler McGill because it lines up for that. I know that excites everybody. So that's his 3rd time pitching at Citi Field on opening day. 3 times. Tyler McGill. So I'm frustrated by it. I'm not saying they're going to be bad or good. I mean, I'm not confident, but I just don't like the way they set this rotation up. I'm just not happy with it.
Yeah, in regards to Kranick, I think maybe they do like him in the bullpen more because, again, at the end of the day, he is a 3-pitch pitcher. So if you're expecting any length out of him, it probably wouldn't be the case. I mean, 3rd time around, a lineup is already as hard as it is with guys that have 5 or 6 pitches, let alone 3. So that's the only thing that I can really think of. But again, I mean, it is what it is. We've been talking about this all season long. Do you think they're going to go to a 6-man rotation, though, when this rotation is fully healthy, or do you think they're going to stick with the 5-man? What do you think?
They're going to go to a 5-man rotation. The 6-man rotation is a dream that I think a lot of analytical people in baseball want, because they downgrade starting pitching in today's game, and they value the bullpen, and they want the 6-man rotation. I still believe it's a business decision where they're trying to, on the business end, trying to pay less for starting pitchers. That's why they want to go to a 6-man rotation. I think that's the business side of things. I don't think it's a baseball thing at all, because again, if it worked, why don't the best teams in baseball do it more? Why don't they do it? It's the teams that don't have good rotations. It's the teams that don't have an actual 5-man rotation that wants to throw a 6-man rotation out there. And the nonsense that Kodai Senga has to have a 5th day off to pitch on a 6th day every single day. I think the Mets said, you know what? Go F yourself, because the first 3 weeks of the season, he's going to pitch almost every 5th day. With the first week of the season, he's going to have an extra day because they're not pitching him until the Marlins series. So he's going to get that extra day. But after that, he's going to a 4-day off day, 4 days off, and then pitching on the 5th day until it gets to the middle of April and they have more days off where they could go to a 6-man. I still don't think they will.
We'll see. I'm over talking pitching, to be honest. All right, let's move on.
All right, bullpen. Bullpen. All right, bullpen. We think this bullpen is going to be very good. I put Max Kranick in the bullpen, even though I'd like him in the starting rotation. But this Max Kranick situation is another annoying situation that the Mets are dealing with Yoasker Brazaban, where Brazaban, he does have options. I think Kranick has options as well, so it's not that big of a deal. But again, Max Kranick pitched better than Yoasker Brazaban. He should be in the bullpen, not Brazaban. So, Chris, I don't need to say anything else. Paul Blackburn is going to be in this bullpen and not in this rotation. If Max Kranick is not in his bullpen and Brazaban is over Max Kranick, what are your thoughts with that?
What are you basing this off of? Because I haven't heard anything about Brazaban. And
I think it was Anthony DiComo and I forgot who, Mike Myers of Mesmerized said that they haven't chose the last spot in the bullpen because obviously Nunez is sent down to AAA. It's either between Brazaban or Kranick, and that was I'm mind bogged. It throws me for a loop because I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, Brazaban has 2 options left. That you said it too. Kranick also probably has one as well. I mean, I also agree. I can't see how this isn't Kranick's job, to be honest. I mean, he was one of the better pitchers for the New York Mets. We're talking about explosive spring training campaigns with Clay Holmes, Griffin Canning, and Max Kranick was definitely one as well. And we just talked about him potentially being in the rotation. We were talking about the same situation last season as well before he went down with an injury at the beginning of the season. So I don't know. I think it should be Kranick, but we'll see. I think Brazaban's still a project type of pitcher in terms of trying to get everything under control. He has the electricity, he has the movement, but he just doesn't know where it's going sometimes. I've said that time and time again. So I do agree. I think Max Kranick at this point is the more polished pitcher, and I'd like to see him in the bullpen over a guy like Brazaban. It's not to say, later on in the season, an injury or something's just not working, Brazaban can't come up and contribute, because he definitely can. But I think that what we have on the bullpen right here on this graphic is what should stick. So I agree with you. I can't disagree with you. There's nothing to disagree with, to be honest.
All right, so that is the projected roster for the 2025 season for opening day. And now we get to the fun stuff. As much as we both complained a little bit about the rotation situation and a little bit of the bullpen and other things in this roster, now we get to the fun stuff, which is prediction time. And that's always the fun part when it comes to what we need to do for a successful season. So obviously the lineups that we're going to pick here, or that we predicted, it's just for opening day. It's not anything else, obviously, because they're going to probably change it every freaking day, as we both don't like. But we're going to get started first with Chris's lineup. Chris, I'm going to pop up your lineup, and you can speak about it. There you go, buddy.
Yeah, listen, I've been a proponent of Juan Soto batting 3 all off season. I don't think it's going to happen at this point with what we said in spring training. I still think it makes logical sense. I just don't think it's going to happen. So therefore, based off of what Mendoza has shown us on almost an everyday basis, this is going to be what I think is your lineup. Now, this is my opening day lineup with the lefty going on the mound for the Houston Astros. So I am assuming that Luis Angel Acuna is going to be in that 9 hole at second base. We said it before that there could be some hesitancies with batting Brett Beatty versus a lefty. I don't think that he can't do it per se, but again, this team loves matchups. Teams around this league love matchups. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it's as clear cut as you always need a right-handed bat versus a left-handed pitcher. But more often than not, that's what teams in today's day and age, and as long as really baseball has existed, tend to gravitate towards. So I think Vientos. Did I have Vientos? I think I had Nimmo in what I sent you. I think I had Nimmo and Vientos flip flop. I could be
You
mistaken.
you
I
might
think
have
that's
did.
what I.
I might have messed that up on you on accident.
No worries. I think so. I think it's going to be Lindor, Soto, Alonso is your top three solidified. I'd be very shocked if Mendoza goes anywhere else. I think it's going to be Nimmo batting cleanup in the 4 spot. And listen, Brandon Nimmo, we've seen him there last season when the Mets decided to flip him and Lindor. Well, actually, he batted 3. He batted more so 3. But anyways, he was in the middle of the order and he struggled. Can we get the version of Brandon Nimmo that we think can be a middle of the lineup type of hitter? And I think we can, because he's having a pretty good, and he had a pretty good end to his spring training with the bat. So that's where I think is going to be your cleanup hitter with Brandon Nimmo. Mark Vientos batting in the 5 spot. Anywhere you put Mark Vientos, I think he's going to succeed. At a certain point this season, I think that him batting 2 could also be a viable option, depending on if you want to move Juan Soto down 1 spot. It's not a requirement at all whatsoever. I think that there's a lot of flexibility and versatility in this top 5 of this Mets lineup. And then you start getting into a little bit more of the questions, especially with Alvarez and McNeil out, who's going to round out the rest of the lineup. Again, as we talked about with a potential platoon at second base, you know, uh, a platoon at DH is something that the Mets have clearly committed to, and they were committed to once the Marte trade with the Royals fell through. I know a lot of people are still talking about Alexander Canario because he is having a hell of a spring training. He really picked it up after the first couple of appearances from being traded from the Cubs to the Mets. I think that if there's a way to sneak Canario onto this roster, I would definitely try to do it instead of him hitting the waivers and basically getting picked up by somebody else, which he definitely will. There's no way that he's coming back to the New York Mets if they don't roster him. But I think this will be the opening day lineup to round things out. Starling Marte batting in the 6th spot, DHing. Jesse Winker is going to bat versus the righties. You all know that. Luis Torrens playing, he's behind the plate, catcher. And again, I think Luis Torrens is a really underrated piece to this Mets lineup when Francisco Alvarez is out. I think that not enough people are talking about him. And I think that, of anybody, Jose Siri aside, the Mets lineup can really get lengthened if Luis Torrens continues, hitting the way he was hitting at a certain point in spring training. Because, now we're talking, I'm not saying that not having McNeil or Alvarez is the end of the world, because I think what you have right on your screen for my lineup right here is not bad. It's not a bad second half of the lineup. It could be hit or miss, but I think Luis Torrens is a really underrated component to the second half of this lineup that not enough Mets fans are talking about. Jose Siri, I agree with you, Rob, in terms of our conversations that we just had about the outfielders. I think that the Mets are going to prioritize early in the season Jose Siri, and if they need to make adjustments from thereafter with the lack of production, etc., and put Tyrone Taylor, in there a whole lot more often, then they will. But I think that Tyrone Taylor is still going to act as that 4th outfielder. And I don't think we're going to see much of Starling Marte in the outfield at all. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think he's going to be a DH. A handful of occasions you'll see him in the outfield, especially depending on what happens with Brandon Nimmo and his injury concerns and health. But this is what I got. And I really do think at the end of the day, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think come Thursday, when the opening day lineup gets put out there, I don't know, man. I know that there's a lot of things going against me right now in terms of, the comments from Lindor, the Mets, needing another veteran outfield or infielder, a right-handed bat. I still think Luis Angel Acuna is going to be on this roster, and I think he'll be playing opening day. And until that lineup card comes out and says otherwise for Mendoza, then that's what I'll have to believe. So that's essentially what I think right here. And I see Joel also saying they're not cutting a $20 million player. I don't think they're going to cut Starling Marte at all either, to be honest. I think you're talking about Starling Marte. They're not going to cut him. I think that the opportunity to open up that roster spot the window was the trade. And once the trade fell through, and it fell through for a certain reason because the Royals felt a strong way about not giving up what the Mets wanted in return. And that gives you a little bit of an idea of how teams around this league view Starling Marte and his, I guess, worth in terms of what return they're going to give the Mets back. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a team needing a veteran bat like Marte at the deadline, and maybe the Mets have a better assessment of their outfield situation, and maybe he's also on the trade block. But there is something to be said about a veteran, bat, former All-Star, the experience that he's had, especially on this team, since 2022, being at least a semi-regular contributor. I do think that he can produce. I think that he is limited more so to like a singles type of hitter, maybe an occasional double here for Starling Marte. He's not going to get you that home run production. I also think that he'd be a great 9-hole hitter, but I don't think the Mets are going to do it. This is probably what the Mets are going to be working with. I think the only wild card here is going to be the situation between Acuna and Beatty come opening day.
Yeah, and look, it's hard to kill any lineup. I don't think any I think our top 5 is probably top 5 or 6 is going to be pretty similar for the most part. Again, I messed up Chris's lineup. It's Nimmo, cleanup, Vientos 5th. That's on me. I apologize for that. I was trying to finish everything when I got home from work, but of course I would. Hey, there ain't a stream without a mess up, so that's important.
You did a fantastic job, Rob. You definitely did.
All right, so my lineup is almost similar, but again, I'm putting Brett Beatty in the lineup. I think they're going to do that. I think the situation with Luis Acuna is a little bit more important to realize than people are raising the roof a little bit in regards to Luis Acuna. But again, Lindor leadoff. Obviously, I like Soto in the 2-hole. I think he's just the perfect 2-hole hitter, just based on his eye at the plate. I think it's perfect, and obviously he does a lot of damage offensively. Pete Alonso batting third. I want Pete Alonso with the protection that every Met fan solely says he needs. Vientos is going to be the protection for him. Batting cleanup. Brandon Nimmo, I think he's going to play left field, even though I was going against it for a while. But I seen him play enough left field in spring where I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with a shorter left field in Dyken Park with the Crawford boxes. He doesn't have a lot to deal with except for that little, outward left center field that he has to worry about, but it's a smaller center field. So I think Nimmo's going to play left field. I think Marte with the lefty on the mound is going to get the DH spot. He kills lefties, and he's still a veteran guy that hits. He just finds a way. I mean, the guy comes back from injury and right away gets a base hit. He just is a pure hitter. And, he's not going to be much speed-wise anymore. Obviously not going to play a lot of the field, but I think it's probably the better DH we had in a while with him and Winker. And I think that's a better platoon that I would go with anybody else. But I think Marte is going to get the gig on opening day. I said it again, Brett Beatty, he deserves to play on opening day. If you're never going to play him against a lefty, then don't make him the starter. I just don't understand that. If you're not going to play him against lefties, then don't play him at all. What is the point of giving somebody the starting job when you're going to take him out of the lineup when there's a lefty on the mound? Either he's a major leaguer or not. Major leaguers need to hit righties and lefties. You're a starter. You should be in the ball game. If you're scared of Brett Beatty hitting against a lefty, then send his ass to the minors and give Luis Acuna the job or somebody else, because it's just stupid. Get Brett Beatty. He deserves it. He proved it in spring training. Give him the opening day gig and let's see what happens. If he looks terrible, then we probably have our answer. But Brett Beatty should get the starting job at second base on opening day. Give him a chance against the lefty, and we'll see how it goes. Luis Torrens, batting 8th. I think he's going to be better than a lot of people think, Chris. I agree with you. I think Torrens is one of the keys here to this lineup. And I think he's going to be good offensively, to be quite honest with you. He has a little bit of sneaky power, not a lot, but he has some sneaky power. He doesn't strike out a lot, and he puts the bat on the ball. And we know when you put the bat on the ball, mistakes happen on the field. He did it a lot last year, and I think he's going to continue to do that with the starting gig with the Francisco Alvarez injury. And Jose Siri, yes, he will be playing center field. Yes, he's going to probably be batting ninth. I like that. If Luis Acuna is not in the lineup, I would put Luis Acuna ninth as well, because obviously the speed and what Luis Acuna can do with the speed in the 9-hole. Jose Siri, I think, is a good 9-hole hitter. He doesn't get on base a lot. I understand that. But I don't like him anywhere else in the lineup. I mean, you could bat him 8; it won't be the end of the world. But I like Jose Siri in the 9 hole because I think he has a little bit more pop in the bat, and with probably not many people on base for him. I think he can, knock that ball over the wall, get a solo home run, and turn the lineup over to Francisco Lindor. So those are our lineups for the 2025, almost said 2024, 2025 season. And what we're going to do here, what we did different last year, we did the NL East predictions first and then our win totals. But because we want to be a little bit, have some fun here, we're going to give our win totals first. Chris, I'm going to give mine first. Since you went first this time, I'm going to give mine first, and I'm going to go with 94 wins. I said this the night we got Juan Soto on the live stream. I think Juan Soto provides between 4 to 6 more wins on a team, record-wise. I feel like he brings that type of just the wins in general, just what he does. I believe he brings between 4 to 6 more wins. So I went in the middle. I went with 5 more wins than I had last year, 94 wins. I think that's a good number. And Chris, we're not gonna say your number yet, but when I saw yours, I'm like, interesting, very interesting. But 94 wins is where I'm going here. I think the Juan Soto effect is real. You saw it with the Yankees last year. The Yankees weren't good enough without him to probably get through the playoffs, let alone a World Series. He is a difference maker. Met fans, you will see it. We've seen it with the Nationals. You've seen it with the Yankees last year. He's a difference maker on this team. He makes everybody else around him better, and he actually steps up in the big moments. Again, I love guys that perform in the playoffs. He does that, and I think it matters. I worry. I was going to go higher with the win total, but because I'm not confident with the rotation, and I think they're not going to be as good as everybody, I think they're going to be probably a little bit below average. I'm not going to go higher than that because I think the lineup and the bullpen is going to drag us to 94 wins, or not really drag us, but get us to 94 wins. I think the rotation will struggle, even with Minaya and Montez coming back sometime, hopefully in May. So 94 wins for me. Chris, you have any thoughts about my win total?
It seemed like we were more or less thinking sort of similar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When I saw that, I kind of laughed. I'm like, yeah, it just makes sense. So I'm going to throw up Chris's number here, and you'll see why I kind of had a laugh there, and Chris smiled as well. As Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Mets are clearly better in a better spot than they were last year. The rotation conversation or not, I think that they are in a better spot than they were last year. I agree with the addition of Juan Soto alone. Listen, at the beginning of this offseason, the one thing that I said, if the Mets do, then they're going to have a better season automatically, is bring back Pete Alonso and go get Juan Soto. And that's exactly what they did. So, we were kind of similar in our win totals last season as well. I think you had like 85. I had 84 going into the season, which was a lot more than some fans' projections at like 78 or something crazy like that. And they blew past even our, win totals as well. So that's not to say the same thing can't happen this year. I think the rotation, I think 92 wins is going to be enough to get them into the playoffs,
I think so
regardless, to
too.
be honest
Yeah.
with you. You know what I mean? And 94 for sure. So, I would love to, see them. And I agree with you in terms of the philosophy of Juan Soto adding, 4 to 5 games on top of that 89 from last season, 100%. And so therefore, maybe I'm shorting them a game or two if we're thinking about it like that, because I definitely do agree with that. But I kind of gave you this number when it was a little bit late, so I wasn't thinking in my best mind. But anyways, that's besides the point. I think anything north of 90 will get the Mets in the playoffs. 92 will solidify that. And I think that this rotation, it's not going to wow people. I'm going to be very straight up with everybody and just say that. I think that we're going to see. I'm very high on Clay Holmes, and I think a lot of Mets fans are still kind of hesitant. I think that he's going to produce a fantastic season. I think Kodai Senga, as long as he's healthy, will get back to 2023 form. And I think David Peterson, more or less, will live up to those expectations that he kind of set for himself, in the second half of 2024. But again, I think in the first half, the indicator for me, especially with Manaya and Montas being on the shelf, is the bullpen. Are they going to get taxed? Are they going to be okay in terms of, just the overall energy levels of maybe needing to come in earlier than needed, especially on, a Tyler McGill start if he implodes in the fourth inning like we've seen him do in the past. I think that the lineup, they were top 10 in every offensive category pretty much last season. I think there's no reason why they shouldn't be top 5 in every offensive category this season because I think this lineup is better. Um, what is the bullpen going to do? Can they pick up that slack in the first couple of months of the season? I think that on paper, and even with the depth, with some guys starting off in AAA, depending on if it's Brazoban, Kranick, etc., I think that they will be up to the task and they'll get the Mets to where they need to be at once the rest of the guys come back. And I'm not saying that they're just going to stay afloat, right? Because I would hate to put the bar that low. But if that's the case, then so be it. I mean, we saw when the Mets took off last season, it was very, very late. And I don't think the same is going to happen this year, but we need to see that rejuvenation, that energy from day one. I mean, we talk about also a guy like Francisco Lindor, who we know is a perpetual slow starter. It'd be fantastic if he can set the tone for this lineup as well from day one, instead of needing, to wait for a month or two in order to really get going.
Yeah.
I like 92 wins. I respect 94 wins as well. And I think that that could be the Mets ceiling. I don't want to say this, but I don't know if I see the Mets winning more than 94 games. You know what I mean?
I'm on
I don't
board with that.
see that.
The reason why I didn't go higher was the fact that I think the bullpen will get taxed, regardless of if they use the depth pieces in the minors or not. I think they're going to get taxed because, look, we haven't seen Clay Holmes. I know what he's done in spring training. Can he get through a third time through the order if need be? I don't know if he can do that. We don't know if he can do that. We have to wait and see. It's probably not going to happen early on in the season, especially on opening day. I think they're going to have a quick hook. If he does 5 innings, I'd be surprised, to be quite honest with you.
Sure.
And, who knows what we're going to get from Tyler McGill. You can go through 3 days of the first 3 games of the series in Houston with really outrageously using your bullpen because I think McGill's probably going to go 4 innings. Griffin Cannon, who knows? And Clay Holmes, I don't know. Let's see him against a real major league lineup, and we'll
Yeah.
see if we can get through it.
Again, I think we both also stated this, and I think deep down, at least in your heart, you also agree with this because I've heard you say this before as well, is that the areas of this team outside of the rotation and the bullpen and the lineup, they're good enough and they're constructed, especially when fully healthy, that they're good enough to maybe pick up some slack if needed. With the rotation if they falter. But again, we were talking about a rotation that was very up, in the air last season as well, with Severino coming off of a very down year the year before that. I mean, who knew what who knows what we were going to get out of Quintana back then as well. Kodai Senga was on the shelf to begin the season. And you know what? The rotation honestly carried the team for a portion of that season as well, to my surprise. So and I know it's different personnel. I do get that. I understand that. At least semi different personality. Talking about Griffin Canning, Montas, etc. when they're fully healthy. But I've been saying it all along. I think this rotation is going to be better than what people expect. I do. And I'm not saying they're going to wow you, but I think they'll be better. So I think that 90 plus wins for sure. I'm sticking at 92. I can see 94. Anything north of 94, I'm like, all right, I have to see it to believe it. But I think this is a playoff team. I've said that from the beginning.
I agree, and I think starting the month off in April is very important to do very well. And they have the 3rd easiest schedule in April in Major League Baseball. And oh, by the way, June is our hardest month. Go figure. Once again, it's
course.
terrible. That's the first time we faced the Braves as well. And what sucks because they don't have Strider, they don't have Acuna, and they'll probably both be back by the time the Mets face the Braves in June. Yeah. So the Mets have the 3rd easiest schedule in April and the hardest schedule in baseball in June. So April, they need to take advantage. And they also have 12 of their first 18 games against American League teams. So all that stuff about American League teams aren't very good and they're not better than the National League. Well, they better take full advantage of that. And that includes the Blue Jays, that includes the Twins and other teams and the A's as well. They got to beat those teams. It's just that simple. So 94 wins for me, 92 wins for Chris. And we're in the same spectrum here. We think over 90 wins is going to get you into the playoffs. And I'm going to go first with the NL East record, Chris. Obviously, you see my 94 wins, but we're going to give all the teams in the NL East records. So it looks like this for me. I think the Mets are going to win the NL East. And as negative as I have been all offseason in regards to the rotation and certain things I think they should have done better when it comes to their acquisitions, I think the Mets are going to be good enough to win the NL East with 94 and 96, 94 and 68 record. I think the Braves are going to come in second, 92 and 70, the exact number that Chris had for the Mets. I think I told you again, I think the Phillies are going to start lowering their total win total. I think they're going to be slowly going down, just like they have been the last 3 seasons. World Series, NLCS, NLDS losses, and I think they're going to streak by 90 wins and possibly fight for that third wild card. But I got the Phillies in the third spot, 90 and 72. The Nationals, I think they're going to be a 500 team. I think they're going to be better. I think they're going to be what the Marlins have been to the NL East and just beat like the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies, and they've just been a pain in the ass. I think the Nationals are going to take that spot because they got a lot of good young players, and they're getting better. And I think that we're going to, all three, the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies are all going to lose games against the Nationals that we shouldn't lose, but the Nationals are going to be a pesky team. And I think the Marlins are terrible. So I think we all think the Marlins are terrible. I think they'll be lucky. They might have 100 losses this year. But I'm going to give them a benefit of the doubt, give them a couple extra wins here. And, but they're going to be at the bottom feeders of the NL East. So I got the Mets winning, Chris, the NL East. I know that's shocking to some people, as bad as I talked about the Mets this offseason. But I don't think the Braves are going to be as good. I think Chris Sale is not going to have a Cy Young season. They lost Max Fried. Strider is not going to be available. We don't even know if he's going to be healthy enough to start the season. We'll see. To get into the rotation again. I think they said May. They're going to have him back. We don't know about Acuna coming back maybe mid-May. So that's a month and a half to almost 2 months. They're not going to have one of their top starters and one of their top players. The Braves are the Braves. I think they're going to still be good because they always find a way. But I think their pitching is going to take a little bit of a tailspin rotation-wise because I don't think Chris Sale is going to be as good as he was last year. He was Cy Young. That's how good he was. The Phillies, I said this again. I know they have a great rotation. They're really good. But I just think mentally, losing the World Series, losing in the NLCS the way they did, losing last year to the Mets in the NLDS, I just think they're in for a season where it's still a good season. I just think they're going to struggle a little bit, Chris. But I'm ready for the Mets to win the NL East. It's about damn time. And I got the 94 wins and winning the NL East. So there we go, guys. Next, Chris is NL East records.
Yeah, listen, every bone in my body wanted to predict that the Mets would win the NL East. I think it's the Braves division to lose. I do. Their offense is just, their lineup is also just honestly on the same level as the New York Mets. And I hate talking up the Braves, but until the Mets actually prove that they can kind of dethrone them, then I can start talking about the division in that way. But again, second place, 92 wins. They're still going to make the playoffs, in my humble opinion. And I think that's what it's going to be. I think the Braves fully healthy, we did not see that last season. And I think that, again, with Acuna, Strider coming back, like you said, we'll see what the timetables on those guys are. But I literally just watched their spring training game, before we hopped on this stream. Olsen went yard, Ozuna went yard, Albies went yard. Clearly this is spring training, but the power that lineup has, really top to bottom, is pretty insane. Their top 6 is also pretty insane. I don't know. I think it's gonna be very hard to knock them off of that top of the NL East. But this is what I have. I think they're going to be a 95 win team. Honestly, I can see them being in the upper echelon, approaching 100. So we're talking about 97, 98 maybe. I think that, give or take, I think giving the Mets a couple more wins also would be not a bad idea. But I kind of went the the lesser route there. But I think the Phillies as well are due for some regression, to be honest with you. Their lineup is also good. I'm not underestimating the Phillies by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't want people to, take it that way. I know they had a very impressive regular season last season, and they just ran into a very hot New York Mets team that got hot at the right time. I mean, same thing goes for football, goes for baseball. If you get hot towards the end of the season, you carry that momentum over to the playoffs, you're bound to produce some upsets. And the Mets definitely did by beating the Phillies last season. Everybody had the Phillies winning, and the Mets beat them. So I think that is pretty fairly confident it's going to be the top three right there in that order. I would love to be wrong, though. I'd love to be wrong coming back on March 24th, 2025, maybe 6 months down the road talking about, wow, the Mets have a real shot to win this. Because I think it's going to be very close between these three teams until the very end, to be honest with you. Maybe around mid-August, late August, early September, we'll start seeing sort of some separation between these top three teams. But this is going to be a hell of a race between these teams. And also just the NL in general. It's just sort of still shocking to me how lopsided this conversation is between the NL and the AL in terms of the actual talent, that these teams have. You're talking about the Dodgers, the Padres. I think the Cubs will be better than what they were last year as well, even though they just lost twice to the Dodgers to begin the season. Another team here and there in between. You're talking about, even the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm not saying they're going to be any sort of playoff contenders or anything like that, but they're also a young and hungry team, as are the Nationals, which I think they're going to have a better season than last season as well at 80 and 82. I can see 81 and 81. I think the Nationals, the teams in the NL East right now better take advantage of the Nationals not being in the equation, because their rebuild is going ahead of schedule, and they will be in this conversation as well in the next couple of seasons. I truly do believe with what they got going on with that roster. And honestly, I just felt like being nice to the Marlins. I mean, their roster is not as good as it was last year, even though Alcantara is coming back. They're going to deal him at the deadline. They're going to try to get some value for him. That's going to be a team and a fan base, an organization that has multiple years before they even think about being competitive again. So I don't know. I just thought it was the most realistic in my mind to understand the way that last season transpired and understand that the Braves this year are going to be by default a new look Braves team, given the guys that are coming back from injury. But that doesn't take away anything from what I think the Mets are going to do this season. And again, going into the playoffs, if you get hot at the right time, anybody can beat anybody. I think that we've seen that up and down the board, not even with the Mets and Phillies last playoff run, but even before that. I mean, when the Phillies took down the Braves, what was it, 2 seasons ago, I believe, or was it 3 seasons ago? One of those series, I was like, wow, I'm kind of shocked that the Phillies did it, but they did. So anything can happen in playoff baseball. That's what I love about it. So this is my NL East. And again, this competition between these three top teams is going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, and last year I think the Braves were a game better than us because obviously they had the tiebreaker. I think the Mets were closely even with the Phillies. So basically what you got to do here is just don't get blown out by the teams that you're fighting for a division for. Like you be around 500 against those teams and beat up on the Nationals, beat up on the Marlins, beat them up of the bad teams in the league. And you got to be within 8, 10, 12, 15 games over 500 against the bad teams in baseball. And the good teams, you just got to be around 500. And that'll easily get you to 90 wins. And, it helped the Mets when the Mets were pretty decent against the good teams last year. They were around the 500, a little bit better than 500. But they actually beat up on the bad teams when it mattered. And that got them to the 89 wins. So, again, I think the Nationals are dangerous. I think they'll be annoying for all three teams in the NL East that are trying to win the division. But, guys, we have different lineups. We have different win totals. We have different NL East predictions. And I see a couple of people saying 88 wins, 86 wins, 95, 100, 94 for heck. Listen, it's going to be a fun season. I think a lot of us believe we're going to make the playoffs. There might be certain few people that think they might not make the playoffs. And I forgot who said it in the chat. If I can find it, I post it, but I don't know if I can find it. Damn, I cannot find it. Oh, Explosive said it. So I agree with this. The Mets don't do good in years they are expected to win. 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. But the Mets also never had a guy like Juan Soto. And you might poo-poo that. You might think that, oh, one player isn't making a difference. Again, didn't we talk about Juan Soto being the difference for the Yankees getting to the World Series? What he did in the playoffs? He is an X factor. This guy changes teams, changes organizations. Like, we have to understand that. Like, that's a difference. When you got a guy that steps up in the biggest moment in the playoffs and in the biggest moment, this guy is not afraid. And I completely understand that Met fans always look, with that side eye, be like, oh, something's going to go wrong with the Mets. It might. It absolutely might. But the Mets never got a Juan Soto ever. This is their biggest free agent acquisition in their history. That's a fact. Right?
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger acquisition than Mike Piazza. And again, this will be determined what the Mets do with Juan Soto. If the Mets win a World Series, that overcomes the Mike Piazza trade. Like, it really does. Mike Piazza was probably the biggest trade, one of the biggest trades in Mets history, acquisition-wise. I mean, there was really good free agents. We know about Carlos Beltran. Mike Hampton for the 1 year was a great signing for that 1 year. But Juan Soto is different. And again, the Mets made the playoffs with Mike Piazza. They didn't win it. They lost to the Yankees. We all know that. But if Juan Soto and the Mets win a World Series, just one, at least to start, that puts Juan Soto on a pedestal. That guy will be Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, Darryl Strawberry, Doc, Ron Darling, Dykstra, all those guys that we still celebrate till this day. That Met team, along with Juan Soto, they win a World Series, they will be remembered just like the 86 World Series. That's a fact, Chris. I don't know if you need to say anything else. You can go ahead, and then we'll finish up the stream.
Oh, that's it. I mean, I don't think that you could have ended the stream with a better statement. I absolutely agree with that. And you know what? Come Thursday, not sure if there's going to be any videos or streams on my channel. I think you're going to do a show maybe on Wednesday, but we'll do pregame and postgame starting Thursday. Just as we did last season. We'll be talking about these games and evaluating this season on a game by game basis. And of course, along the way, we'll stop at certain intervals and kind of be like, well, this is what's transpired up to here. This is why we think. But like now each game matters. And it would do the Mets a lot of justice and a lot of good to actually beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, like you said, with an easier schedule in April, because then we could maybe take a breath if June doesn't go their way yet again. So I think that we say this every year. We said it last year. I'm gonna say it again this year. The starts, they're not the end all be all in terms of your record, come May, mid-May, etc., because we know that, late starts happen. You saw with the Nationals all the way back in 2019. You saw with the Mets last season. It's not the all be all, but I really do think that a strong start will do the Mets a lot of good in terms of not needing to be as on point in those middle months, especially June, with facing the Braves for the first time. But you know what? At the end of the day, the reason and the kind of way that I want to talk about this team moving forward as well is that the Mets shouldn't be scared of anybody. The Mets shouldn't be scared of anybody. There's no reason to be scared of anybody. The Dodgers, who cares, right? The Braves, who cares? I think that this team on paper, even though we talk about all the time, the lapses maybe at certain positions in this roster, particularly around the rotation, I think that this is one of the more well-constructed rosters in general, even still. And I think that they're going to put up a hell of a fight against these top teams. And you know what? This is a unique time to be a Mets fan, because it's like from here on out, starting Thursday, they're going to have championship caliber aspirations, probably, I don't know, until Juan Soto's contract expires. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to be talking about seasons like last season. Oh, this is a, fill-in year. This is an evaluation year. No, 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 no. You know what I mean? The Mets overachieved expectations last year, and we were pleasantly surprised. They didn't make it to where we wanted them to make it, which was the World Series, right? There's still some room to improve and grow, but we'll take that. What they produced last year in such a low expectation year, but the pressure's back on,
Yep.
right? The pressure's back on. Last year in the clubhouse, JD Martinez is like, well, there's no pressure on us. There's no expectations.
Yep.
So let's go out there and prove everybody wrong. Well, they need to prove everybody wrong 100% now because there is expectations from this fan base, right? From the, ownership in front office all the way down and from the rest of the league, really. From the rest of the league.
Yep.
The Mets really put the baseball world on notice this offseason. I will say that. Kind of got overshadowed a little bit by what the Dodgers are doing, but everybody got overshadowed by what the Dodgers are doing. But the time is now. So this should be exciting. And the expectations can't be an excuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're a good team with championship caliber aspirations, you're going to get the job done. The Dodgers did it. They had all the expectations in the world. And guess what? They delivered. Let's see the Mets do it. I hope that they're up to the task this season. But again, if things don't go their way in 2025, guess what? We're going to have an offseason to talk about, and we're going to talk about 2026 in just the same sense, because every single year from here on out, we're going to be talking about high expectations, high stakes with the roster, the money allocated to this roster, the personnel on this roster. But it all starts on Thursday, the 27th in Houston. Clay Holmes, your opening day starter. Baseball season's back. I love it. It's awesome.
High expectations come with a target on your back, and we're not going to surprise anybody at all. But the motto is you got to believe, and we're going to keep on going to that motto every single time, guys. 94 wins for me, 92 for Chris. I have the Mets winning the division and making the playoffs, obviously, and Chris has them second in the division and also making the playoffs, guys. I want to thank you guys for watching the 2025 Mets season preview right here on our channels and on X. I will be doing a show on Wednesday live from Houston. That will be my next show. So that'll be the next time you see me. And can't wait for the season to start, guys. Finally, it's baseball season almost every single day for the next 6 months. Thank you for watching, guys. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. And I'll see you next time on the show, guys. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets.
Go Mets.
And crib with a dream, no doubt. Skylight kissing the skies with 25 on all time. Freshness, they gon' shine. Silver splashing bombs, out of orbit they fly. Linda steady cooking kingpin, shortstop guy. Orange and blue, red and true, yeah we here fight. Mets taking crowns in the city, feel lights. Queens in the house, loud and clear, no fear. 2025's the year, let's make it crystal clear.